Let's see.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order now that we're streaming at 6:07. And we have a quorum tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming out on such an auspicious evening. So are there any changes to the November 2018 minutes? Being none, and I have a motion to approve. So Madeline's approved. A second, any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Who seconded?
Linda.
Thank you.
So, I want to start out by acknowledging our guests tonight. We have a guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm with the insurance.
He is Stephanie's boss. What's your official title? Assistant director. Okay, thank you. And so I'd like to recognize our newest member. Official as our newest commissioner. And I also want to acknowledge our new executive officers. So I'm very pleased to be chair for a little while. And we have Victoria Knapp Pravat, our vice chair. Darcy, who's not here tonight, continues as treasurer, and Kimberly is our secretary moving forward. Thank you very much for stepping up to the plate, guys. So, and just a couple words before we really get into the meat of the matter. I just want to say that we're in a period of transition. I think you're all aware that we're kind of shifting culturally and starting to really redefine who we are and who we will become as an organization. And really, we started out, Madeline, I want to thank you for really beginning this process of transitioning from old ACAC to new ACAC. And you did a terrific job. Thank you. And so, again, before we get started, I just want to remind everybody of a few basics. First of all, just remember our mission is really our role for the city is to make recommendations to the mayor and commission. We make recommendations to them on developing matters pertaining to public art and cultural activity. We're not a decision-making body. We only make recommendations. The ultimate decision maker are the mayor and the commission. But we fill an important role, I think, having our ears to the ground and sort of really understanding what our community needs for public art. So I think we perform a vital role for the city on those matters. So our meetings are conducted following Robert's rules, and we are going to get training on that eventually. But in the meantime, we're going to do the best to follow those rules. And as we continue to meet, if anybody has any Robert's rules things that we need to pay attention to, please do not hesitate to raise.
I have some cheat sheets that I use with nonprofit boards. I'm happy to email those or bring copies of those to the meeting just as a reference until we do get more formal training. I just made a note to myself to do that.
Cool. Yes, on that matter, I did have a meeting with Stephanie and Sherry Hines of the city attorney's office to kind of talk about meeting management, really, and she did underscore the necessity to follow protocol under Robert's rules, and they're working on developing training for that. Also, I redid our agenda today, just to take off the item about public comments. Um,
No, it's just mine.
okay, Keisha. Okay. So,
Okay.
our meetings, these monthly meetings are our primary forum for conducting business for our organization. And while the public may attend and they can observe our meetings, this is not a forum for public comment. So anyone who does come and does have comments, they are encouraged to send comments as an email to staff or myself. So just some basic understanding of how we run, and there'll be more on that. I just thought, beginning this year, this year, we just have a couple of those reminders. And I am going to be your new chair, either chair for the next 3 months, and then I'm rolling on.
Sure.
Yes, sure about that. But it's not like I'm gonna go away. I'm just rolling off as a full-fledged member of the commission. But I really wanna, help facilitate and continue to facilitate the work that Madeline began to begin that transition of us as the old cultural affairs to the new cultural affairs. And so I want to try to facilitate that in as seamless a way as possible. And part of that is, and thank you, Madeline, for organizing a meeting with myself and Victoria. We got a chance to meet just to kind of go over things and get a good understanding of where we are, where we're going, and how we can work together. So we want to make sure that we transition seamlessly. So that's what we started. And I really want to underscore that as a group, we want to emphasize a few key traits. Transparency. We definitely want to conduct our business in a transparent manner. We want to engender trust among not only ourselves, but with staff and the public. And then we're in this together. We're a team. And I think that's the way we want to really conduct our business, really focusing on teamwork, working together as a group, no one person taking too much charge. So my role is really, the chair's role is really to facilitate these meetings in an impartial way and make sure that everybody has a voice and that we follow the rules. So those are my introductory comments before we begin with the business. So I want to start our business with the fiscal year 24 operating budget proposal, which hopefully all of you have seen the email that I sent out, and thankfully we got an extension for submitting those budget forms. And so we have a proposal of $45,000, and one of our handouts illustrates all the ways we intend to spend this money. And so we have allocated, just as we did in fiscal year 23, $30,000 for arts and community grants. And again, this is just really based on last year's budget, since we don't really have a lot of new stuff coming our way. Another $2,500 for Poet Laureate. Last year we had an $8,000 budget for the website, and that was really to redo it. So next year we don't need that much. We're just gonna be paying for hosting. So we've allocated $1,000 for that. And then I went ahead and put some money, earmarked some money for a strategic plan, thinking that, especially after talking to Victoria, we talked about that we had had a retreat last year, came up with a lot of wonderful ideas that kind of didn't ever go anywhere. And we really want that to go somewhere. So we really feel like it would be advantageous for us to have another retreat to be much more strategic about all those things that we talked about. So sort of reviewing last year's outcome and then really coming up with a strategic plan and really make it more, maybe I'm thinking a 3-year plan, just because our terms are 3 years. And in spring, we should have new membership coming on board. And this is, I think the retreat would be an ideal opportunity for new people to participate in a meaningful way. And then at the end of the 3-year term, everybody can point at actual accomplishments. So I think a 3-year window for a strategy plan makes a lot of sense. So that's, and I put that in there and I really wanted to have more discussion about that, but it is what it is. So, and so we've allocated $2,500, which is about what we had budgeted last year for that. And then, sort of the remainder of the budget would be $7,000, which I think we can earmark for really accelerating, enhancing, augmenting our public education. We are desperately in need of public education media and getting out there and helping people to understand what it is that we do and what we have done, how we do it, all that kind of stuff that is still very murky in particularly the public's mind. So, and we don't have, we have all the materials for a bus shelter map. It would be great to be able to produce something like that. Maybe even a public art brochure. There are lots of things. And I'm hoping that in our retreat, we can really sort of solidify what that looks like. So, and then we have a $2,000 for our administrative costs, bringing us to a total of $4,500.
Ellen, what are those admin costs usually for? What is that?
There are always things that come up.
Gotcha.
And miscellaneous printing costs or
Badges, things like
and-
that. Yeah, badges, things.
Okay.
We need to do another order of those and kind of incidental stuff.
Stuff. Yeah, okay.
We just have it. Now, these categories, when we do the budget request, we're asking for $45,000. They don't really look at how we're gonna spend it. None of this ties us down. We can be flexible, more or less, given, we all have to agree and approve and vote and blah, blah, blah. But, basically, we would be asking for this level of funding. And then, it still needs to go through the whole mayor commission process to get this money. We have no guarantees that we would get this money. So one would hope that we would, but you never know. So we might have to readjust this depending on how powers that be decide to allocate the funding. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering so we're deciding to keep the pilot and to spend to propose the same amount. If it's worth it. Yes, it is. But it's taking so much specific attention as maybe something else is not. So I'm wondering if it's something that was successful, if it was well received and needed for the community, that we actually say, hey, yes, let's put that money there. I'm just curious. Not that I'm not positive on that. I love it. But I'm just wondering, was an impact, did the pilot had an impact on our community as maybe we thought?
And I wonder, I think that's a good question. What kind of reporting, does the poet laureate need to do for his project? Or is that something that he would do, or is that facilitated in any way? Because I know a lot of projects have reporting at the end, and I just wondered if that was.
Well,
part
he's
of
our
it.
very first
Right,
poet laureate.
and
so-
he goes through this April?
Yes.
Just April, okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, no, actually, technically,
Fiscal year?
July.
Yeah, okay, fiscal
Yeah, but April, I was when we plan to do another call for poet laureate in April. So by the time he's done, there would be another poet laureate in place.
Because I remember, sorry, I'm interrupting.
Can I say one thing? People at the end of the table, you gotta speak up, because I
Okay.
can't hear very
Sorry.
well. Thank you.
You gotta remember, before we talked about the pilot, but we also talked about other possibility or other things, included maybe, um, share space for an artist in town or something, I don't know, whatever it is. But I'm just wondering, I know there is not time for this and we need to vote, but I'm guessing. Are you sure about this thing?
I think the flex spend, to your point, would come from arts and community grants, because, or, which is not grants, it's awards, arts and community awards. And that's where the flex spending could potentially come from, because that has been done to support, the creation of public projects.
Something.
Yeah, and that could take a lot of different forms, so like we talked about one form of it, but I would think that would be what we would need to consider the details of, and not at the expense of poet laureate. Since, to be fair, like we're talking about making a decision of, oh, was it worth it? We haven't even done the reporting or started that, so I don't think now would be the time to swap that out for a new idea. We don't even know what it is, but yeah, to your point, I think that 30,000 would be where the flex would be.
Well, the other thing is that this is, yet another reason why, really want to do a retreat. So that we can consider all the different ideas that we have had in the past and what we might fund moving forward. And I do agree that the poet laureate, we really do need to look at what the impact was, evaluate it, and determine if that's worth moving forward. But again, we have so many ideas floating out there to really bring those ideas down to the ground and have an agenda. So next year, when we do our operating budget, we'll know what we want to fund. We were at a disadvantage this year because we got a late start on this. We're trying to just, we're treading water for right now. And then, hopefully we will have a little better feel for where we want to head in the future. And we do have, and like I said, we do, and as Madeline mentioned, we do have some flexibility. We can shift this funding around. This doesn't even begin until July. This budget doesn't begin until July. So, and again, we need to get to the final number before we can even begin.
I was gonna say it's hard to gauge any impact of any program after 1 year. So being a poet laureate program after 1 year doesn't make the most sense. But I think if you give it like at least 3 years, then you can really get an idea of the impact, and hopefully it has grown in that time. So I'm not a fan of the one and done.
Okay. We'll have more conversation on that, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think the biggest change obviously is the public education media. Just when I see 7,000 and I think of brochures, I think that is a lot of money. But when I think of, and I know we've said these are just examples of what we could do, but one thing I wanted to just, something I think would be valuable, because of just how much people engage with it, is video content. And I think $7,000 could go some ways in that kind of, in that way, through maybe like for the new website or social, or something like that, because I mean, I think the general public, they're on their phones all the time, so that could be a way to, anyway, for my mind, $7,000 makes more sense. We're not just talking about brochures, but I think we could do that for, so just to put that into context, I think just want to share that for consideration.
But it's good to throw a chunk of change at it to get some effective stuff done.
One other thing,
Yes.
when you fill out the forms, I think it has their arts and community grants. And the people are encouraged to not use that terminology.
Right.
It's a contract for services, not like a grant that might just be
We'll make that.
from a nonprofit, no strings attached.
So, any other discussion on that budget? Anybody want to make a motion to approve operating budget?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Yeah. That's a unanimous vote. That one passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to our vacancies. So we right now have a current vacancy. We have 10 standing members and we need 11. In March, we're gonna have 2 more vacancies. That way Linda's rolling off and I'm rolling off. So we have actually really 3 vacancies that we need to fill. And I would like to go ahead and, assuming that we can, go ahead and issue the calls for members so that we can have them on board by the spring, rather than wait for March to roll around and then we start thinking about.
And that has to go onto the commission agenda cycle, right? So, yeah, I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
Bring in that.
I think we could go ahead and advertise those 3 vacancies.
I already, I did reach out to PIO and the clerk's office to give them a heads up that we were gonna do a call for 3 new members, so they're aware of that. The form, as far as like the application, the BAC form is kind of a standard form for all the BACs. And then, of course, the committee can, put together whatever interview questions. That's something that we have more control over, so we can ask them whatever follow-up questions. You just have to put together a committee to review the applicants.
Right, we're gonna need some volunteers for that review, but we can hold off on that volunteer solicitation till after it gets closer to our review time. So Tatiana is on it this month. Awesome, thank you.
Typically a 1 month window.
I would suggest maybe doing it a longer call, maybe?
6
Maybe
weeks?
6 weeks?
6 weeks, sounds good.
6 weeks. That means middle of February.
I mean, depending on when we actually go live with the call, so.
Yeah,
it's
when do you think we can go live?
Again, I don't have a set date yet. It's, something that we have to work out with PIO, so,
It's pretty routine.
but
Yeah.
soon.
It is,
I told them like the end of this month, but I don't have an exact date, but I'll update everybody when I have.
And it would be great if all of us could tap into our social contacts to try to get some folks on board. And I do think that we need some visual artists on the commission. We don't have very many, and I think it'd be nice to have at least one visual artist, since we do so much of it in our project work.
Tatiana, when the call is issued, will you forward it or something that we can share with the?
Yeah, I'll let everyone know before it even is live, probably let everyone know, but yes.
Thank you.
And that call will be on the ACAC page on the ACC website where the calls for art are, everything kind of lives on that page, so that's where.
And then just send it to everybody
But
in
it'll-
our email contact list.
And it'll go out
Everybody.
in our MailChimp, to, everyone in our listserv. We have like 1,200 people on that listserv, so.
Cool.
And those people do have to live in Clarke County, is that right?
We do have ex officio opening. We only have 1 ex officio spot filled right now, correct? Jesus is not active.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much solicitation we do around that. I mean, that's something we can think about and maybe talk about strategically. Who who we might want to invite to be ex officio. There are lots of different groups and organizations we might consider, something to think about. I think we'll put that on the retreat agenda. All right, so moving on, the Arts and Community Awards, RFP. So, in November, we agreed that we would have 3 awards, 6,000 each for portable murals. Those are those durable board things. And then 2 at 6,000 each for cultural events. So I'm thinking that we need to move that one out there and solicit the RFPs.
I have I have an update on this. I've been in a tremendous amount of dialogue with my colleagues here at ACC around how the process for the Art and Community Awards has been done and how it should be done now. And that has made the timeline a lot further out. And the way that it looks right now is that we start and prepare the call. And so first of all, these works will have to be done on and displayed on ACC property, and performances will also have to happen on ACC property, and we'll have to have insurance, and selected proposals will have to be presented to the mayor and commission individually to be approved. And then the process for they get their proof of insurance, they work through the contract system, the risk and safety, and then all of that. So I have the timeline of that, and it's really long. So where we are with that is if we start in February with the call, we can utilize funds that you currently have dedicated for this as part of to advertise that. We also intend to host an in-person info session meeting around how to apply and all of the things to expect in the application process and how long and fairly elaborate it is. And then Tatiana will conduct that here at the Linden House Arts Center, and then we'll also record that and make that available to applicants. And we will also, it has been strongly encouraged, and we think that this will help for future successful applicants to have that, a place on the application that says, I have attended the training, I have watched from start to finish the video of the training around this Art and Community Awards application, so that people have either come and participated in the 1 hour or less training, or they have watched a video of it, so that they understand the timeline and what this project entails. And then that would be like a box that they check on their application. So that looks like advertising in March. The calls are reviewed, selected. The recommendation is made in the spring, April or May. Artists go through the contracting process in June, July, and then they would hopefully be able to get their checks in August of this year, and their final report would be due June 24. That does not include Art and Community Awards out of your current operational budget. This is for out of your next fiscal year.
That's fiscal year 24. So you're saying fiscal year 23, you can't do anything?
Not in an Art and Community Awards under this process. There's not enough time.
What was the last point of that? You said payment go out in August and September?
Well, yeah, the timeline that I have here would mean they would hopefully get their checks July or August based on how long it took for the contracts to come through. And then they would be free to execute their projects after they got their check. Well, actually, they were free. And once they were approved and their contract was signed, they could execute their project, and then their check would come to them if they had, if they were reimbursing themselves, so to speak. But their final report would be due in the end of June 2024, because you have to complete the work and then it has to be done in the same fiscal year. The money the money goes out is when it has to be completed, and that is where we're at with it. And I appreciate that was not your expectation, but that is the timeline that we have.
Is it at all feasible that we'll be able to award any arts and community
in this fiscal year.
In the future at all?
Yes, that's what I've been working on for the last 6 months. And so that, it just has these new layers where it has to be on ACC property and it has to be approved by the mayor and commission, and each one has to have
And
insurance.
that's according to who?
The attorney's office.
The attorney.
And so that washes out anything from this.
For this type of award under this process, yes. It does not mean that you can't spend that money on other things, and we can talk about that. But as far as the art and community awards process, as the way it is, the way we have to distribute these funds in this way, it is not feasible to do it in this fiscal year.
But, so then in years, so we're always gonna be in this situation. So we're always gonna need the next fiscal year to be funded
Yes.
so that we can advertise
Yes.
the year prior.
So you're always gonna need some money in this, like right now, we could run an ad at the flagpole and you could we have this class and people can start applying for it. But the money part doesn't happen until the next fiscal year, but we're building up to that. So by the time we get to July, the new fiscal year's kicked in and then you can distribute those funds. But so we
really
can start.
Doing all this work without any assurance that we have any money to give.
Yep, that's true. We could have to wait till they voted on your budget. That's true. So this is assuming that would be approved for the same amount you were approved last
We
year.
wouldn't sign the contracts if we didn't have the money.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of I made a timeline that I think is what would work. And I have gone over this many times with it's 90 days right now for a contract to start to
And
finish.
can I just ask what problem all these new layers are solving?
Authority is one of them, whether or not the ordinance gives you the authority to distribute funds in this way without the mayor and commission approving them. So that's why each one will need insurance, and also you'll take each project, you'll have to put it on the agenda, you'll go to the mayor and commission and say, here's the projects that we have. We're going to distribute X amount of dollars, and they will approve those
So in the
projects.
past, the Arts and Community Awards were not approved by the mayor and commission?
Not to my knowledge.
Like as a bucket they were, but not individually.
They were
The
like,
budget was approved, but
Yeah.
not the projects.
they were smaller dollar amount
I was just
at
asking.
the time.
I know, I understand that this is not the way we have been doing them, but I am assured that this is the way we will do them now.
Thank
Is
goodness.
it possible to get your timeline in writing in our folder so that we can all just look at it, digest it, and understand a little bit more sort of what we're working with the fiscal year stuff?
Yes.
And I have a question, Stephanie, have they talked about, who would be eligible to apply? Will it be like the jury show where it's that, kind of
That's a good
contiguous
question.
counties?
I think it's supposed to be Clarke County residents, whereas we have that differently here. We do the 5 counties that touch and the 5
Yeah.
counties that touch, but this, I think, is supposed to be limited. Has it always been just a Clarke County, or was it the 5?
It has always been Clark County. However, I don't know. I don't think the dollar makes any difference.
Well, I think we wanted it to be earmarked to the local community because that's how we sort of philosophically saw this money and our way of supporting the local artists. We have our capital SPLOST money that supports a wider range of artists, and this was our way of keeping it local. That's how.
I think that's
Hey, Jim.
what it should be personally.
I mean, I just bring it up so we're
that's a
sure
good-
it's in there
Yeah.
because there's always a lot of
Thank you for bringing it up.
controversy about that. So it's better, I think, to say it right up front.
Mhm.
that
Another
Everybody knows.
piece of this that it layers in an added complexity is that they have to take place on ACC property. So that means we have to find a host site for, whatever these permanent pieces of art are, these performances. And so that's going to be also built into, if performance is what you're funding, then they have to include, if they want to host a, dance performance at the Morton Theater, then they have to include, this is what it costs to rent the Morton Theater, and this is all the AV costs. And so that has to be part of their budget. So those are all things that'll have to go into that, as well as, we'll have to work on our end, what to do with this art, where it will go and be displayed and what that looks like on staff resources and time. So all of that layers and complexity. I know we've tried to work around with existing materials like the Dunna boards. We do have some ideas around that that I can present in more detail around, like, we have some interest from the commission around doing some murals attached to the two community centers that are currently being, like, having a facelift, the Hurd Community Center and the Lake Park Community Center. Exteriors are all getting like pressure washed and refinished, so they have kind of like a new look, and updating the front exteriors. So it has been asked if art could be integrated into those updates. So that's an opportunity for, like, here's a place that could use some art, and we could, that's on obviously government property, and we can use government resources to, like, attach them to the building, right? So, like, these are things that I'm still trying to work out how we actually develop a project that manages all of those different resources and staff labor, you know? So there's, what's good about, I mean, what we can, I think, feel good about is that once we start this off, that we'll have a time and a cycle where every January you're like, this is how many art community awards we want to do. And we set the schedule year after year. And then it's like, you build this funding out in this way. And, like, I know it's a rough start, but I think it starts the plan the way you want it to be, and also builds into a work, sort of working staff, like how that will integrate into the community. And so I have some other questions around, like, was, you know, performances and, you know, works of art and the length of time those works of art have to be up. I don't think it's the same as when it's a capital expense. So we can talk about, y'all can think and discuss among how long you want a work of art to be up. You know, if you spend X amount of dollars, you want it to be up for 6 months, 1 year? Is it thematic? Like, we've talked about partnering, or, you know, pairing this funding and these opportunities to things that are kind of like built into some of the government calendar, since it has to be on property. So, you know, the Sandy Creek Nature Center has their 50th anniversary this year. So, like, that could be a venue to put landscapes painted on Dunna boards in outside unexpected spaces that connect to the anniversary of, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to, like, find ways to build these in, especially in the first year, that kind of get us started, and also kind of build these into the pathways that people are already working on in ACC So, and also, yeah, build this into the way that the calendar for the cultural affairs works, so that you'll see the top of the year will be like, we're ready to do our art. We voted on it. We know what we want to put out there every year, and kind of cycle through like that.
I think that's a fine plan. I mean, we're maybe gonna lose a little bit of money this year, but
There's
you know,
potentially other ways to apply those funds.
money isn't gonna get, it's not gonna be flushed down the toilet, it'll get used. And the other thing is, we can look at that for maybe doing some of this public education stuff that we've been talking about. I mean, we could do it sooner rather than later. So there's that possibility too.
Well, I think on the one hand, it's disappointing, obviously, that those funds won't be dispersed in the same way as we had hoped. But I am so relieved to have a timeline and the, like, agreement that this is the right way to do it, and we can follow this every year moving forward. And I think that not only is, like, tying, you know, projects with the city calendar, not only does it make sense, but it's gonna just have such a stronger impact for the public, being able to see these resources coming together, and, like, it's really gonna enrich the experiences that they're having, which is the whole point. So I'm really excited. I'm just a little.
Yeah. At first, it was just really disappointing, but now, looking at it with a longer view, I think it's gonna be.
I mean, we can start now on the
Right.
next. It's just like think about the money, just, it's like the check won't clear, so to speak, until the next fiscal year. But we can get started on the process. And also because there's a lot to refine about this process, because it is more complex than it was before. So there's more work on our part to make it work.
So we can move this forward, the grant RFPs,
You can, yep.
okay?
You just have to be
That's cool.
specific, and we're gonna work on finalizing and preparing that to have it advertised next month. And then we thought that some of the operating funds you could maybe, I mean, it's not very much money, but like advertising in the flagpole for the RFP and for the info meetings here in March, have those early and try to kind of get people
Now,
aware
can
of it.
we use this money? It won't be that next year, never mind. Just trying to think of, you know, preparing sites. with the money that we have, if we think that the durable boards might go here, 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 is there anything we can do in preparation?
Perhaps I've still got to work with Alex and a lot of our colleagues to figure out like the spaces that we can add those to that call. Right now, we're still sort of just like making a call with these Donna boards, but we have to put them on. We're not really, we want to create opportunities that are like connected to site or to purpose in place. And so if it's like Sandy Creek Nature Center, then people want to know that when we put the call out. So that is,
So we are gonna have specific sites before.
you can, I mean, I'm not saying you have to, but that can be a possibility. And so that's what makes these calls a little more, you could, I mean, I don't know.
They don't want to make Athens Public Art at a site that's incongruous with that site, so it might be the best idea to make.
Like, this is what we're looking for, yeah.
Well, then maybe we should hold off on the RFP until we know better where these might be located.
I need to finish a presentation of available sites and like opportunities, and then y'all can select
That would
from
be
those.
good.
We have some other like opportunity spaces that you'd be like, here's some other things that can work within your budget this year and see what, I've still got to vet a few things on the finance side of that, but I just, I've really, realizing that the AICA awards are not going to happen in this fiscal year, I'm trying to purpose
Now,
for the next.
can we though go forward with a cultural event? Those two.
Not if you're contracting, not if you're like doing a call and
No,
selecting.
I mean, for next, that it would be paid out the file
Yeah.
in
Oh,
fiscal
you
year
mean like
24,
hire someone to do a
just
dance performance or a puppet show?
advertise it so that groups know that,
Yes.
they might be able to get this.
You have a category and it has to be, you just can put on there, it has to be performed on ACC
Right.
property. And then if that's a rented property, it's like, it's the amphitheater at Dudley Park, it's the Linden House back lawn, it's the Morton Theater. They have to specify where the location is on ACC property and like what the costs are associated with that in their budget. And they have to declare that, it'll be part of the
But
application.
it can also be, Parade of Lights or Fest or somebody is.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Usually things.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't be held on private property and having,
But if it's on Clayton Street.
It's technically
December
city
7th.
yeah, I know.
That's a good point.
That's a good question. I will have to,
But then there would be like permitting involved like that if we were just
Yeah.
doing something.
Well, usually we're a smaller part
Sure.
of those kinds of things.
Sure.
We're just part of their big fundraising.
Yeah.
Piece. So I'm just thinking that some of those organizations like to plan ahead. If they knew this was coming down the pike, they might put their hat in the ring. I don't want to, just sit on it if we could already have it out there.
I think what she's saying is, I think Serena's been waiting to talk. Okay, I think what she's saying is, yes, we can do that. We can do that, it's just the funds won't come till later.
Well, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
We're all saying the same thing.
Well, no,
Okay.
yes, I'm just saying that maybe we don't advertise the Duraboards, the 3 portable murals right away, hold on that, but the cultural events, we might be able to advertise sooner rather than later.
I think we would do it all at one time, just to not confuse the messaging, confuse the public around it. Like, I don't think we're saying we would issue it in 2 separate calls, so I don't know why the advertising would be separate.
Well, it's 2 separate, kind of, I mean, a person doing a mural is not gonna be the same people that are trying to organize an event next January.
And I think
So it's an event oriented thing.
Yeah,
which
I
is
get what she's
kind
saying.
of different than a.
that's up to
tangible
y'all, really.
RFP.
that
And,
makes sense.
For possible, we can't award, okay, so what we would not be able to do is award it until July.
they could apply for it, we could do all the processing, it's like the money can't transfer from
Until
one
July.
entity to the other until after the new fiscal year, which is July 1.
I mean, I don't know. What do y'all think?
You were gonna speak.
Yes, I'm wondering if we can finalize everything that we just said, something written that we can share by email and read what we need, when we need to have. And so we think about it and we can see. I feel like it's still like
Information.
a bubble, like a boiling, soup, but
I will say that I think having two separate calls is a good idea.
yes.
So that people understand, looking at each separate call, we call Arts and Community Awards event or Arts and Community Awards, visual art or whatever you call it. I think that would be beneficial to getting more eyes on it because you're targeting different groups. And I also believe that because we're not exactly sure where a piece of visual art might go, that'll give us a little bit more time to get into that before we issue a call.
Mhm.
But I want to feel like we're doing something. You know, I want to feel like we're giving somebody something. But I just feel stagnant. And I get, like, you put so much work into this, because the last meeting, your answers were, I'm not sure, I don't know, I need to check on that, and it was very much like, okay, this feels really up in the air. Now that we have something concrete, like your timeline, it definitely makes me feel a lot better, but I still want to make sure that we can get going in that February timeline on something.
And I mean, also, I think this Dana boards is a good use of these as a resource, and that's something we won't always have, but we do have them in storage. We already purchased them. And we were looking at as well, doing some like logistics of, if you did want to go with like having murals on the two community centers, like they could be combined, that could be like 4 Dana boards together, and that could be really grand, and that could be connected to that. I mean, a wonderful opportunity to have like a local artist connect to these like, community centers that have long been parts of our community, and like have people who understand those places and respond to them visually, and like that becomes a part of their neighborhoods and their spaces. So like, there's a lot, I think, of opportunity, but it doesn't always have to be like this year over year. It's just like, we're kind of getting off onto a new plan. So like having a few things kind of fixed and ready could be useful for us. And so I've been, working to like kind of pull some of these together to get us started.
It's a great start, I think.
Whereas like the Sandy Creek Nature Center idea came about because we do have the 50th, they're doing a lot of things over the year, but those Dana boards are great for outside. We could also, like we did before, we cut them in half so they were smaller and easier for some like artists to work. It's a smaller scale because they're huge. They're, they're enormous. So smaller scale one, and we could add them to like, they can be outside, they can be added to things, and they have a pretty good life. So they can be more accessible for artists who hasn't worked on large scale yet. And that gives new artists a chance to step into this public art sphere and get to work.
That's a good benefit.
Why don't we, table this then? And, we're gonna get, like a written description of what we can do with the Dora boards and the potential sites.
And I'll give you the timeline that I have. I'm gonna refine it a little bit, but it gives you an idea about what these take.
Can we go ahead and move this to the subcommittee we already defined? Does this need to come back for a full discussion? Because we already have like 5 people who volunteered. We were ready to meet in December, and
I
it
think-
wasn't the timeline.
I think we should be looking at this as a whole group. My personal opinion is that we need to look, because this is a major portion of our group, and I think everybody wants to have a role, an active role in the decision making. And there aren't very many opportunities for active roles in decision making on this group. And so I appreciate that we have had committees doing this before, but I kind of would like to, I think that we have been siloed and divided a lot in the past, and I think it might be beneficial for us to have larger group discussions on these kinds of things.
And this is a big change.
It's a big change, yeah.
And I think for all of us to be involved this first time at least is
Yeah.
beneficial, and then perhaps we discover that maybe not everybody does need to get involved. So this first time, I think having input from everybody would be
Yeah.
beneficial for everybody.
That makes sense. And then we'll also table the cultural events call too, until we know a little bit better about the timeline. Still not clear on me either. Okay, tabled for next month.
Next month, okay.
So we have had on and off of our agenda in the past, taking a look at our bylaws. It kind of fell off of our agenda, and I'm just bringing it back to our agenda so we can decide or discuss and see if we want to revisit them. It seems like we needed to urgently at one point. And we have old bylaws and they really need to be redone to reflect kind of our evolution as a group. So, anybody wanna chime in on that topic? Anybody think it's a good idea? Show of hands. Yeah, we need to do this. All right. So, we do, I think, now this is one item that I don't think we can do as a big group. You don't want. No. So it do feel like it would be good to have a couple of volunteers, and I know Donna, you had volunteered
I've spent hours and hours on this already.
on it already.
Yes.
So let's,
Let's
I
try to
thought I
convince her.
shared the,
Let's try to
I
convince
thought I
her.
shared the draft with you
With
on
me.
Google.
Oh, with everyone?
No,
Oh, okay.
just with me. Okay.
when you became, I know I shared
Oh.
with you,
Okay, I
when you
may,
became the,
okay, all right. I have not looked at it. I've been distracted. No excuses. I think it could be done with two people. So Donna and Helen do this. Is that-
Well,
Or is Donna ready to be done with it?
Ezra was working on it too.
Ezra was
Yeah,
doing it
sorry.
too. All right. Well,
I really, I mean,
So when you shared it with Helen or Madeline, where was it? What state? Was it like a new draft or what state was it in? Is what I-
sort of a draft.
A new draft bylaws.
Right.
I didn't know if it was, yeah, I had no idea.
can we move it forward for the group to review? Is it at that stage?
Maybe you should take a look at it.
I'll look at it. I'll look at it. And we'll.
They weren't terrible, they weren't horrible. You know,
Like the ones that were not horrible.
yeah, the ones that were in place weren't, I mean, bylaws are just kind of
Yeah.
simple, they're not, they can't get too complicated. So, there's not a lot of changes. That's what we were talking about, adding in committees, and that's not really what bylaws are for. I mean, you can add in arts and community awards, but you don't know if they're gonna be funded next year or
You can
not.
do it more generically, that's what.
I think the
Yeah.
bylaws should address the whole group and not get into the committee structure stuff, because there's too many,
Yeah, if they don't have to be in there, then don't put it in there.
yeah.
Should we say that?
I will look at it. I will look
I'll
at it,
make sure you get
and
it.
we will put it on the agenda, next month, and, we might distribute that for the whole group.
Before it gets on,
Before
I
the-
think it's.
Yeah. I think
Okay,
do that.
And I do have that email from you from August 1st, and I apologize, I just never read it. It was just a bad time to school, so sorry about that.
Yes,
So do you have access to Google
I
Drive?
do.
Okay,
I don't remember, no, I did you put it in the ACAT folder or is it a different folder?
I may have just invited you by an email account.
Would it be all right? Could you just do that again? We'll send it to me again. It's helen.kirkendall@gmail. Kirkendall, KUYKENDYKENDAL, yeah. And just send that to me again. We'll look at that.
At what?
Gmail.com.
Okay.
Okay, all right, and hopefully we can get that moving. I'm awesome. It is moving.
And thank you.
Yes, I'm like, this is great. I was thinking we were still from, having to go from square one, but this is wonderful. Okay,
Just out of curiosity, not to belabor it, but is there anyone from ACC government that needs to look at them from a legal standpoint? So there's that piece of the process too, that we look at it and then it goes to them and then they're like, yay, nay, okay,
Right.
just making sure I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's good. All right, cool. Moving on. So we talked about doing a retreat. And I think everybody, it looks like they're in agreement that this would be a good idea, and I'm thinking that, do we want to vote on that? Let's see, we need somebody to, volunteer to help out with that. And I was thinking Victoria, maybe.
I love it.
And so
So-
we can work together on
Yeah.
putting that together.
So are you thinking, since we're gonna have, some extra funds, maybe doing it in this fiscal year?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we
okay.
would do it this fiscal year. We have the,
Free roll off.
Good.
yes. Yeah,
Way before.
that's right, that's right.
We need to do a free roll.
Well, we need the new people.
We
here
need
then.
people, so we're
But you could-
thinking
you could still come
April.
in.
It would also be good to do it after you've had, I hope that BAC training will come in the near future, so sometime, have that, and they'll have access, the new members will, but y'all will likely have that like either in person or collectively, so that will help shape that retreat dialogue, right?
Yeah,
So,
so we're looking at April.
I think March,
March.
if you, oh no, you have your new people up to come.
I think our new people are coming, and I'm not sure when they're gonna actually get elected. It probably won't be until April at the earliest, right?
I mean, it can take a while depending on what else is on the cycle.
We might be looking at May.
I was thinking May is the earliest.
May is when I think.
I'm wondering if I agree with you on the importance of having the young people.
Mhm.
I feel like we need to do something before that. With the people where we are right now, maybe, just to feel like we are not wasting months
Yes.
waiting for that to happen. I'm wondering if we can have maybe something smaller, but if we can have something from here to March, just for us, just to know waste what we did last year.
Yeah.
And to have something concrete to bring in May with the new.
I was gonna say, when I came to that retreat in the spring, I was completely lost.
Yeah.
And it was very overwhelming. So I wouldn't necessarily make that be one of the first introductions to work in person. It was a lot.
Well, maybe what we can do in the interim is to look at what we did last year and have each of us study the results of the retreat and maybe come up with our own individual list, top 10 items that we think need attention. Begin to whittle some of that stuff down. There might be other things that we might want to do that a retreat could divulge.
I mean, honestly, I feel like with what happened with the last retreat, I can't remember the facilitator's name from,
Robinson, she was from Robinson.
yes.
I don't know her name.
Whatever her name, we didn't give her the full opportunity to really do her job.
We did not.
And so we want to make sure that whatever we do, it comes to some type of conclusion with that person, because that's what they're there for.
Exactly.
To sort of help us synthesize all of our ideas. So we want to start, I believe, from a place of looking at what we did last time and saying, hey, remember last time we didn't quite finish? We want to get back into this, so help us synthesize all of this. So we're not starting over, not reinventing the wheel, and not making it completely and all up to each one of us, because we're always going to be all over the place.
Well, and we never You know, I am a firm believer in having a document
Absolutely.
that records the stuff and, you know, like a real strategic plan, not just a flip chart
Yes.
version of a strategic plan. So maybe we can look at creating a 3-year plan. And we can begin that process this year without a facilitator right away.
Can we begin with the personal, everyone reviewing,
Yeah.
but also meeting outside the monthly meeting and just have a discussion as a group on personal opinion?
Yeah.
You can, you just have to announce that, and it's still a
Yeah.
meeting, still open.
Okay.
It would be kind of like a retreat, not a retreat. But it would be advancing something, I feel. Because we can, I mean, I can read it, but, and have like 10 points, but.
We need to discuss it.
I agree.
Does.
So I have 2 questions. First is clarifying about what we approved a few minutes ago. The 3-year plan, you're saying those funds we just talked about, that was for fiscal year 24.
Yeah.
But it says spring 23 retreat. We can't,
No, we already had the 23 retreat, or the 20, fiscal year 23, oh no, the 22 retreat.
oh, gotcha. Wait, what year is it? It's 23 right now,
It's
right?
23 right now. So we would have, but you know, really, but
But
I
your
put it
last
in the
retreat happened in the fiscal year
of 22, 23.
whatever, yeah.
It was the 23 fiscal year is when we had it.
It was, no.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was
Yeah,
22.
Yeah.
It was in
Or in
May.
fiscal year 23.
So I'm just clarifying like what these funds
So confusing.
It was May of 2022.
is May
so it was
22,
still-
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it
so,
was
so
still-
these funds in this 3-year plan, I just want to make sure we know, like, when we are spending $2,500 to create a 3-year plan, are we saying we're going to do that in March, or we're going to do that next spring, or fall,
Okay.
or whatever?
Well, I think we should do that this year, this fiscal year.
And fund it with.
Before June 30th.
Right, just fund it with
Correct.
something up to 30,000.
Yes,
We're not
we've
spending
got the
enough.
money, we've got the funding to do it.
So I want to make sure we're not talking
Yes.
about another year
No,
from now.
no, we're not gonna do that.
Perfect. So that was my
That was
first clarifying.
my,
No worries, just clarifying. And then second one was, yeah, can we go ahead? Do we need to wait till March for Victoria's sake? Or can we talk about this, that review and then prioritizing, paring down that? Can we talk about that in February?
Do we have something?
This is a part of the normal.
Notes.
no,
She has notes, she drafted notes, so what we could do, I don't know if this is how this works, but what we could do is share that again with the group and then just dedicate time on the February agenda, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and say, where's everybody's head at with this? Maybe, you know, I don't know, that would be
preference.
one way to do it.
If we don't have a lot of stuff to, you know?
I have
you
a
know,
question.
Because we don't like the idea of doing another day. That's
Well, I
why.
think we can't, is what I meant, it's like
We
we,
can, but we just have to announce publicly.
okay, I got you.
we're challenging, but I think
When we
can
already have this
dedicate
day. designated.
some of next month's meeting
Yeah.
for looking at this again.
Let's try.
And having everybody look at the notes, come up with some of your thoughts, either a top 10 of what you're interested in, or maybe there's some other thought you have about just starting to move us towards a real strategic plan.
Can we, I can't remember if we did this last May, but can we send out kind of a Google's form and say, share your top 5 ideas and have that prepared also for this February meeting to kind of move it along so that we're already hashing out some of that? Can we collect those beforehand?
That would be good.
That'd be great.
That'd be good. We could try.
Yeah, I'll take
Yeah,
it.
But I think we need to have, I believe that all of you want to have your voices heard at the table.
Yeah.
and, just reading it doesn't always cut the bill, so. I feel like, each person can have, time next month to talk about their priorities.
I had a question. Does the county have any in-house facilitators for strategic planning?
Yes.
It would be short staffed right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yes and no. We actually do have some staff who work in City Hall who are working with some of the other BACs, and I have asked about like what that would look like to work with this BAC, but I don't know their schedule or availability. I am waiting to hear back. So there, we have a lot of BACs that are all going through a lot of transition and new challenges, and that has created like a need to have more dialogue and more like work plans so that work actually gets done and it's feasible for people to actually show up and participate in these meetings. So, and also, you know, this strategic planning is important because it helps keep us in line with like, is this within the authority of this commission to actually do these actions? We can do that before we start trying to like make things real that actually aren't in your scope of work. So that gives us a chance to like vet that against the attorney's office and also see like what is possible and feasible, not only financially, but like from a staff and a resource perspective. So yeah, having a work plan, and I am waiting to hear back if they're available to work with this BAC, which is exactly like facilitating this kind of 2 and 3 year plan. I know they're working with a couple of the other BACs right now, so.
I don't think we're gonna vote on the retreat just yet. Let's just table that one. Table. All right. Was there anything we needed to vote on?
Bishop Park, when I talk about projects.
Shall we take a moment and have that? Well, we can't, wait, where are we?
We have 6 more.
Mhm.
Seven, we have 7.
Yeah,
So,
I'm in the committee, so I would love to listen to that.
The Bishop Park vote?
yeah, let's go ahead and segue. Yeah, let's segue to that, to project reports, and we'll start with the Bishop one.
Okay, hold on, let me just text Marjorie really quick, because she was waiting until we were gonna discuss projects, so I thought that was gonna be at the end. So, Bishop Park, the user group, took some time to, put together a survey with some of the options that were discussed for Bishop Park. And that user group had a little bit of time to, vote on the different options and the different sites that were discussed. And, you know, we discussed the pool area, we discussed the pavilion area, a few different spots within Bishop Park, but the overwhelming favorite of the user group was to do that pedestrian gate at the Hawthorne side. So that kind of corner, kind of where the basketball courts are. There's just a regular gate, chain link fence with a gate. And it's one of the things we discussed as an option was doing an art gate. So like whether it's welded or laser cut or whatever, and having some sort of decorative gate. And that was the preferred option from the Bishop Park user group. So we wanted to go ahead and with, you know, ACAC's blessing, move forward with getting that site and type of art approved by the mayor and commission. Hi, Madri.
Hi, Tatiana. Hi, everyone.
Good. Thank you for your patience. We're just talking about Bishop Park.
Sure.
So, and again, that's a $35,000 budget. One of the things that was discussed, and I talked to Alex about this as well, was there's 2 pedestrian gates. And while this would be the focus, they would have to do this one if we could put something, in the RFP that says if you wanted to design coordinating gates and do 2 gates with that budget, or you could just do the 1 and have that be an option, as part of the agenda item when it gets approved. So,
So 2 for the price of 35 or 1 for 35?
yeah, it would kind of depend on the artists and their design and their vision, but it could either be, I'm thinking it could either be 1, more elaborate, or 2, if they wanted to do it.
And wait until the proposals are in before we're making that decision, or?
So we have to get the approval of the site and the type of art. So we would put the main site as the Hawthorne pedestrian gate, but with an option to add the additional pedestrian gate if an artist wanted to do two gates, if that makes sense.
With the same amount of money?
Yes.
Mm-mm.
Is this
We're not
not,
giving it to, we're not making that decision. We're not giving the artist that decision.
Right, we're giving, so the budget is the budget, it's
Okay.
$35,000. If an artist wants to do 1 elaborate gate or do 2 gates with that budget, that would be their
That's what they're
option.
submitting, their proposal.
Yes, so they would be submitting a proposal.
could this not be an opportunity to commit some CapEx funds to go ahead and say, we actually want 2 gates and we would like to put more funds towards it?
If that is an option as well, if you feel strongly there should be 2 coordinating gates, that could be an option, but.
Where is the other one, Tatiana?
So it's on the Sunset side?
It's still on the Longhorn side. but
Okay.
it's just on-
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, further down towards Prince Avenue.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's right. People at the end of the YMCA.
Closer to Bell's.
Yeah.
Oh, like Prince, isn't it?
Mhm.
That's so funny. So there could potentially be kind of like capping on either end.
Yeah,
So this walking or driving experience, you would really see that it was like one big space connected.
And don't add in the sections, so they can remove all vegetation along that fence as well.
Oh.
So it is more visible. Before you want to floss the gates because of the common vegetation, but now you really see the fence and you really, it's very visible.
So I'm trying to understand for me as a learning process. So we send you some recommendation, right? And they didn't, we weren't talking about gate, right?
okay, well, we
And
did
you
talk
meant-
about the gates in the user group meeting. There were some other suggestions for a stage and a fountain, but we cannot do additional infrastructure improvements. This is just for art. So you can't put in plumbing for a fountain. You can't put in a stage that needs programming, that needs additional management. That's not a viable option. We need physical things that can just, be integrated into the plan for Bishop Park.
And what about the gate? Because the gate is going to be added, right?
The gate is at Bishop Park, yes, but that's a physical thing that doesn't require any additional plumbing or anything like that. It doesn't need programming. We don't have to have like a stage or something like that. That's a programming operational element. So we're looking at capital improvements that can be that are art focused. So,
I mean, it seems to me like a gate would be $35,000. I mean, if it's,
yeah, you could easily.
I think it would be
spend-
hard to do 2 for 35,000.
If you're doing just the
maybe.
gate, now this isn't the whole fence.
Right,
There's
right,
definitely
yeah,
not for the
yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah,
fence,
yeah.
But it's not like a gate that you drive through. It's a pedestrian gate, so it's.
Oh, it's more
Oh,
like a 6 foot.
not like, I'm
So
thinking
it's,
like some.
no, it's not like a huge,
Oh,
it's just
okay,
a,
okay.
It's right now.
Like four-
And it's on a standard sidewalk.
right.
Sidewalk, probably not even. It's gateway, I want to be clear to say. Locking gateway.
to like introduce people, like, here's a way into Bishop Park from Hawthorne. It kind of just like, it's like supposed to be inviting and create like a, oh, I'll meet you at the south gate of the park kind of thing. So
Are there any examples you can perhaps find and show on the screen maybe
Of
of the kind of pedestrian gate that
of the actual gate?
yeah, of something that would, I don't know, I'm having trouble visualizing it.
The site, the actual gate, or like an artistic example?
An artistic example or
Oh,
current
sure.
example that like might, what a
Because the
pedestrian
things
gate
I'm
at
thinking
park
about, I
would
think
look
are
like.
maybe bigger and more
It
elaborate.
could be something like welded and, or it could be cast, it could be laser cut. There's a lot of different ways to
Is
do.
there any example around town that we?
So something that comes to mind,
Sure, let me pull up.
that would be much bigger, but have you been to the children's garden at the botanical garden? So they have a beautiful entryway.
And that's sort of what I
That's
think.
Big, but
large.
this is not gonna
Not-
be.
So
that
they
big.
have,
No,
okay,
no, no, no.
they have a large
That's
piece.
why I said it could be, potentially be too pedestrian.
They have a large piece that spans like this, like 12-foot wide kind of pathway, but then they also have a smaller section that is like built from that large
projected.
arch, so that you can
No, that's.
kind of like
that's
interact with it
Helen's
a little bit more.
presentation.
But that's just like,
Oh,
that's
site,
larger
it's not-
scale, but that's like an example of,
That's just a
it's like
shape.
Something
sculptural.
designating it, like she said, as entrance.
Yes, and it says this is a place, so something of the character of the place and.
right now, it's just a gap. and-
Change.
But
there is a sidewalk. Anything's an improvement.
Yes.
I mean,
That's how I walk.
Sidewalk connectivity. On the other sidewalk.
This is connected to Helen's computer to show the website. It's not my stuff. up there. So if you want to see, like, these are some examples
So I
of,
see the.
Maybe see it.
so it could be,
I see.
like I said, it could be something welded, it could be made out of.
I mean, it's enough, like a sidewalk width, so
Yeah.
it's not that big or that tall. And a lot of this are like industrial material.
Yeah.
think we either
Have
agree
fabricated
with
with
the
laser
game
cuts.
or not. And we have to decide whether we think two would be preferable. We can also add money from our capital budget to augment it.
Which is sitting at several $100,000.
Yeah, a couple hundred.
And we haven't spent, when was the last CapEx we had? Like the last,
Yeah.
long time ago, years ago.
We need to spend that money.
Yeah.
We do need to spend.
So I think
We need to spend the money.
It's not enough of I think we need a bigger project myself, but, for that money.
What we don't want to do is build a gate, put a RFP out there, have them say we want to build one gate and then still have like a chain link fence or something in another place. Is that what the alternative is if they decide that they don't want to do two gates?
But it'd just be a regular gate at the other site.
I mean, we wouldn't need to, it sounds like, tell me if this is right, we wouldn't need to double it. We wouldn't need to do 70,000, maybe just an extra 10.
A more simpler design.
Sure, I mean,
Okay.
that was my thinking. It really depends on the artist's design, if they want to do
15 to
something
it.
elaborate and just focus on the one site, or if they want to do something, less elaborate and be able to do two coordinating gates or complementary gates
think
or
that would
whatever. So that's the other option. The other thing to keep in mind too, I know y'all had wanted to do a art crosswalk possibly at that Oglethorpe Hawthorne intersection. Now that is definitely doable. However, the Hawthorne money is like $7,000. In order to do that intersection, it would be like $50,000.
50?
for the intersection.
Whoa.
If you did thermoplastic, so the Rainbow Crosswalk downtown that was done with thermoplastic, so what they can do is they can take any design really and sort of print it on these thermoplastic sheets that are 2x4. And then that is installed by a contractor that's a proprietary process that they do. It's a big heat transfer thing. But what it could be is a project where an artist submits a digital file. And if they're not doing any physical install, then they don't have to have all that insurance. If they're doing any painting or anything on the site, if they're physically there in any capacity, then they need the insurance. But if it's like, here's the file and someone else is installing it, you pay the artist, a smaller amount of money because they're not doing physical install. And then the money would go towards the crosswalk. Now, it's important to remember that you would deduct what it would cost for a regular crosswalk, because they need to put a crosswalk there either way, but it would be a considerable increase in the cost to do an art crosswalk. So the one downtown was about $33,000 more or less at Clayton and College to do that way install, and that's a much smaller intersection. So talking with Diana and Madre with Sploss, they suggested probably around 50,000 would be what that
Is that all for?
would be all for. And again, that's just kind of a ballpark estimate. We haven't.
Do we all know what we are talking about? Because we share with Tatiana, like the bishop people share with Tatiana an idea, but I'm not sure if you all who are not in that group know what we are talking about.
So
Again,
Bishop Park and Hawthorne and Oglethorpe intersection are two different sites. And so I'm just talking about Hawthorne and Oglethorpe, not because we need to vote on that tonight, but just because that is a potential for using some of your capital funds. And if you're talking about using some of those capital funds, just something to keep in mind. You could still add extra money to Bishop Park and add extra money to the intersection as well. The funds are there. But they do want a decision about Bishop. I don't know if you have to make a decision about the 2 gates or 1 gate, because this is really just, type and location, and we can just put the second site as an alternate option in the agenda report, and then as we are refining the call for art, we can.
This is what we had in mind.
Oh, well, let's do that then, if we don't have to decide that
Using
tonight.
Big city to make the street crossing like safer.
Just so everyone knows what we're talking about. This intersection, the pedestrian fee, we're talking about in the primary side is here, so it's sort of at the edge of this parking lot.
Yeah.
And then the other one there. Did you say this, it would be?
Yeah, look for instance, you sidewalk right there, right?
Yes.
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 This being like there or?
No, it's right there.
Yeah.
So there's not, is this a continuing sidewalk?
There's a gap in the sidewalk that have to be addressed through the gap program. But right now, we've got things that be from the edge of the park.
Where was the first one, Madeline? I was looking down, I'm sorry.
That one closer to the.
So there's no like efficient, like 7 minutes this here. So
That's not good.
it's like.
That's not bad.
So one of the things the reason these 2 projects were discussed together is because Hawthorne and Oglethorpe intersection, it's an intersection improvement. It's a very small amount of money. It's only, like I said, about $7,000. One of the options was adding that money to the Bishop Park site if it was close to that intersection. So, but then again, you don't have to add the one to the other if you're gonna be doing something at that intersection. It was just an option that was discussed.
Yeah, I think
Because,
that's good.
yeah, the 1% for art has to be clearly associable with the site for the project. So in that particular instance, it was close enough where they could have been.
Well, I like the idea that it's pedestrian oriented, and so there is definitely a transportation component for that, so that makes a lot of sense. And, seems like the concept of a pedestrian gateway,
Mhm,
and this is what the user group wants.
mhm.
So I think unless we have some reason not to agree with the user group, which is an important group to listen to.
Was it an official ACC user group?
Yes.
User groups are appointed or
That's what
are
I'm-
sanctioned by the mayor and.
That's what I was asking. It was
Yes,
official.
They are the
Not just
official.
something we call.
Yes, we wouldn't use user group otherwise.
Okay.
Yes.
So-
Selection panels are different. That's for when we're actually choosing the specific piece for art. But when we're just talking about type and location, it's in the user group.
I would not want to go up against a user group that would not look good for us, so.
So did the user group want 2 locations or that outside of what their scope is
So
or what they want?
we really discussed that particular gate, but Alex brought up that there was the second gate that we hadn't discussed as a possible option. And, you know,
And to be clear, I'm not gonna thinning out the park thing. I was thinking somewhere else, I look at the opportunity to play them all.
mhm,
To head, tail, you know, right, left, good, bad, I don't know, median.
Sure.
So I'm
sure.
As an artist, I would want the most money I can get. One I would think that we would be best off getting something big and meaningful at one spot. Even 35,000 doesn't get you very much. And we need to have stuff that makes an impact. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I think impact art costs money and we should put our eggs in one basket.
Okay.
That's my.
I would prefer to see 2 gates and up it using CapEx, like $15,000 to take the total budget to 50.
I was gonna say.
I mean, do we need to send it back to the user group, John?
No.
No, because they're okay with that. It's just if we're gonna,
Uh,
They
we
want
are
to-
about to
They're
go
getting the one gate, and this is just another gate.
opportunity, and if we are gonna vote for this, we don't need to, and we're gonna send it to the mayor and commission, they
Right.
don't need to vote again later to approve our budget expansion if we decide that later. So should we not do this now?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we do need to vote on Bishop Park. now.
Right.
Hawthorne and Oglethorpe, we can wait on
Right.
that if we want to discuss that more for the.
What I'm saying though is, we need to go ahead and agree right now, one gate or 2, up it or don't.
I don't think we need to decide one
Okay.
gate or 2. It's just,
We need to vote on the user group's.
Recommendation.
Which is
to do the
to
gate.
do the gate with an option of a second gate for.
But we need to make sure that it's more money to do a second gate.
But we don't
Right,
have to
but
do
they're
that
not
until later.
approving
Somehow.
Yeah.
But we don't have to do that for
We don't
this.
need to do that.
Exactly.
I see, okay.
Let's get a
gotcha.
motion to, address this, somebody. Gate. Bishop Park pedestrian gateway approval.
I move that the Bishop Park Art be a gate at, is that location?
Hawthorne, near Oglethorpe, yeah.
Hawthorne and Oglethorpe. That,
The
Work.
user group's recommendation.
I think southern gate of the park.
oh,
Well-
Southern guy.
Second.
I'm bad at my.
We've got a second, and any more discussion? All right, let's vote. All those in favor? No,
I
no,
can't
say.
You don't, you do not.
So did anyone, time out, what just happened? Did someone abstain? Did someone say no? I'm trying to write and look up at the same time.
I think we all voted yes, right? We all voted yes. We're good. Thank you very much for sticking around for.
Thank you.
I'm gonna send, a link to the website so you can take a look at it. Thank you. Because we're gonna look at it tonight. Why don't we just go ahead and
Wanna do the rest
complete
of
the project?
So a couple things, I should have put it on the upcoming events, but we do have a couple selection panels coming up this month, both for Firefly Trail. So we have our Firefly Trail, 2 calls for art. Those are both sculpture calls. And, let's see, we have, I'd say about 20 or so for the larger project and, maybe half a dozen of the smaller ones so far. But anyway, we have those selection panels scheduled for Wednesday, the 18th at 6 p.m. And that's for the intersection at Indian Hills. And then the trailhead at Old Winterville Road is going to be on Wednesday, the 25th at 6 p.m. And those are going to be here in this room. I do need, would like 2 ACAC members to be on each of those. It doesn't have to be the same two.
There's no second one?
So the second site, the
The-
trailhead at, the trailhead at Old Winterville Road, and that's gonna be on the 25th. So both Wednesdays, next Wednesday and the Wednesday after. And I should note that the intersection, selection is gonna be a two-part selection, because that's an RFQ. So what we're doing with this round is just shortlisting artists based on their previous work. So we're gonna shortlist 3 artists and then give them a month to do their final proposal, and then come back on the 23rd of February and do the follow-up for the finalists. So
Yes.
if you do the one on the 18th, it'd be ideal if you could also come on the 23rd for the,
February.
25th.
so,
Different than this.
okay, so the 25th is the trailhead. That's just a one and done selection.
Yeah.
The one on the 18th for the intersection, the follow-up is February 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And that's
So,
also Wednesday?
that'll be a Thursday. They're normally Thursdays. I had to do them on Wednesday this month because we didn't have any Thursdays.
I could do the, trailhead. Yes.
Okay, that's on the 25th, and that's just gonna be one meeting.
Yeah, I can do that one, I just can't do that.
That's fine. Anyone else want to do Trailhead? And I can send this info to the whole, I'll send the info to the whole group too.
I have both of those on my calendar.
Okay.
We
Thank
just
you.
need one other person.
And again, it's not, we don't have to have it, just like we usually have 2 ACAC members present, and it's
And
good
this
to have
is,
help scoring as well.
will be one of those blind sort of,
Yes.
okay.
So I take
Do
all,
the trailhead also
okay,
on the 25th.
25th, and that's just like one, that's the single night, just so you know.
Okay, I won't come to that one.
Oh, no.
No, 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 no,
No.
no, both of you are. You don't need it.
Yeah.
You do that.
No, you need 2 plus you.
I'm glad.
Okay, so that's Firefly Trail, and that's what's coming up. And of course, once those, we have those pieces selected, they're gonna go to mayor and commission approval. And they already kind of have them scheduled for, in preparation for those approvals. Greenway, we have our 2 selected artists for Greenway, the 2 mural projects. Thank you, Helen, for participating in those, and Alex. So we have those 2 pieces that have been selected. They're approved by mayor commission. Now they're in the contract stage. We've got drafts of the contracts finalized at the attorney's office. Now they're with our safety and risk, which takes about another month. So hopefully, those artists will be actually contracted soon. And then once their contract is actually executed, which can take another month, then we can finally announce them, because I know we've been very eager to announce those 2 mural projects, especially because one is local. So that'll be nice, but we have to wait till they're under contract. So, so Greenway, Firefly, talked about Bishop Park. Tallahassee, we already voted up to do the roundabout on Tallahassee, so that type and site is gonna be on the agenda for the mayor commission this month, I believe. Marjorie, is it this month or next month?
It's for this month.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'll let everyone know once that's approved, and then we can start discussing, call for art for that the next few months. Arena, I just got some notes back today on the 3 calls for art for the arena. I put the 3 drafts together. So I got some notes from the Classic Center, but I think those will be ready to go out probably by early next month, hopefully, but I'll update everyone once we have the final drafts for those. And of course, let's see. Oh, and Clayton Street, of course, Clayton Street wrapped up in December. The art was installed, and so we get to close that project, and that's finished. I know it's had a lot of discussion in the community. We have had some vandalism. One of the pieces was stolen from College in Clayton. It was removed. Someone saw it off and took it. And it's been a very interesting experience, but you know, it is being taken care of. PD's looking into it. We are going to commission a replacement piece from the artist, and it will be reinstalled. So that is the plan.
Is it going to be reinstalled in the same location?
There has been no discussion of changing the location.
Okay, I would like to discuss changing the location. I don't know if that's appropriate, but
Again, like, it's not up to me personally, but we can, you know, if one of
You can formally request as a cultural affairs, you can send me an email that says that you would like to discuss that replacement.
via email and not in a meeting?
I heard from someone on the commission that they were going to move it at some point before it was moved up.
So that's why you should request a formal meeting with me and just say, we'd like to talk to the manager's office about the status of that.
Okay.
And we'll address it.
So we do that as a group.
Yes, if you would, as the chair, send me a formal email requesting, like, to engage in dialogue with the manager's office around the replacement of that that piece of art. And just say that you'd like to have more information, you have questions, you'd like to have a conversation, and then I will facilitate said conversation. You don't have to say like a collective, we want it this way, we want it that way, just that we'd like to have a discussion
Well, we
around it.
don't have a collective, we want it this way or that way. So
That's what I'm saying. Like, you just have to say like, we would like to be included in a dialogue, and then I will help arrange that so that we can have that dialogue.
There are multiple modules similar to that one that are in other locations that no one's had an issue with. It's the same exact piece. So,
You know, the
Can you
locations
just
and
repeat what you just said?
sorry, there's 4 styles of modules
Right.
for frequency. The bench module is one of those 4. So there's 2 of the large ones, and then 4 each of the smaller ones. So there are 4 bench modules. One was mounted next to the bench because of the brick layout on the street. But there are 2 over existing benches currently on Clayton Street. It wasn't just the one
Yeah,
piece. So it's just the one that was stolen.
noticed and
Yes.
noticed, right? Because everyone put it online.
Perhaps, perhaps. I mean, they're all on Clayton Street.
Yeah.
They're not anywhere else hidden anywhere. They're all out in the open.
that's interesting to know that there is a second bench piece.
There's two more.
And
Just,
You
okay.
mean 3 total?
So there's 3 that are mounted over the bench.
That's, yeah,
And
interesting,
1 was taken and 2 are still there. So
interesting.
which came first, the art or the benches?
the benches,
That's what I thought.
but they are new benches,
They're brand new.
brand new benches. And a
And
lot
we'll-
more benches.
Clayton Street has lots more benches, it has a public
think
restroom, it has all that
There are
resurfacing, it's in
33 benches.
all that
total.
new, like,
30 bench.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll send you an email.
just
and
formally
follow up
request
with
that.
Yeah, awesome. Let's continue moving on.
Yes.
Any other updates?
I think that's everything, if you want to just go to.
Yep.
Yeah,
websites.
I want to move on to the website. Okay.
Helen, are we gonna need a vote on that? Cause I need to leave in about 5 minutes. Oh, I love it.
No. I'm gonna send it because not everybody's here, and I'd love to get some input,
Love that.
thoughts, comments. But this is a mock-up of what the site would look like. It's not actually functional yet. So you can't click on anything. this is kind of, the direction that they're all headed.
Helen, can you remind me who we are using for this?
Okay, we are using Captive A.
Oh, great, okay. That's what I was hoping.
Uh, So, yeah, to be, we land on a right on this world, or so that we have. But one of the main things is just to get people's attention and to have this banner down here. First place you land, you're gonna see things about call for artists, apply now, press the button, and you'll go to the information about how to apply for it. So whenever we have new members or some immediate thing that we want people to like engage with us, then we have a button. Thing. And then you can get information about mission. We're going to have an interactive map, so a map of all the existing art, public art projects, and I'm not sure how extensive that's going to be, but at least it will be, at the very minimum, it will be all art that we as an organization have funded since 2010. I don't know if we get all of the public, because, there's a lot. I especially think it's important for the public to know where their money has gone. As far as what we have. So you'll be able to search on a map about the programs that we offer. We have this partners, we have, synopsis of how much money we've already invested in the community, how many projects we have going on, and art pieces are out there.
Can you go up to the top if I could, or?
And then we'll have our social, links to our social. But it's very colorful. They're doing a wonderful job, and Tatiana is working hard getting all of the resources together, photographs and whatnot. So on the top menu, art, artists, programs, and about us.
That's great. Still no calendar or events. I thought we had talked about a calendar or events
There will be
page.
events. Talk about that.
Yeah, that kind of thing would be great at the top bar, because that's one of the most common things you would go to a website to see. So at the top menu. But yeah, it looks great.
And I just want to mention my one huge pet peeve about websites, that often on the front page, nowhere does it tell what the city and the state is that the thing is talking about.
Like Georgia.
Athens, Georgia. It needs to say that somewhere
I get you.
on the front page.
Yeah, there's a lot of Athenses.
Like
Yeah, I think it's,
A
if you go
commission
up,
of
if you
the-
go up I-75, every state has an Athens. Isn't that what it is? It's something like that, up to Ohio.
so potentially it could, like a line
Or
be
at the bottom.
added,
It could be
or
at
the
bottom,
header or
too.
something.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be at the top, it could be at the very bottom, just something to tell you where this thing is located.
Like a volunteer commission of, or whatever it needs to be, like of Athens, Georgia, or something.
Other than what we're describing our.
Not on the front
On the
page.
front page. so
It needs to say
on that
Athens,
front page,
Georgia.
know where you are.
Okay, well, maybe under our.
Yeah, even just literally ask Georgia. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because I have gone to websites recently thinking, oh no, the farmer's market changed locations. That was Ohio.
Athens, Ohio.
That was Ohio.
We did all
And
that.
other things like that,
That's
because you have to look.
Clark County School District. I love it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this is, right?
Thank you, Helen.
All right. Wait, no, any announcements, anything else?
Go dogs.
You have to say it like Dee Dee, go dogs.
That's so Dee Dee.